Hello and welcome to Meetup of the Formbird FLEET Professionals Community. Thank you for joining us live, and hopefully there's something here for you in the future. You can always come back and check it. My name is Paul Hosking. I used to just do housekeeping, but now I've been upgraded and I am doing the introduction as well. I haven't got a raise, but that's maybe I'll talk to Mark about it. Just to let you know, just a little bit about Formbird. I know a lot of people here will already know all this, but Formbird has a vision, and our vision is that we move organisations from collecting data to communicating. The FLEET Professionals Community is a place where we all come together to discuss common issues, whether it be related to Formbird Fleet or whether it just be related to fleets full stop. We actually also want this to be a place where your domain knowledge comes out. So your understanding and your deep knowledge of what's happening in fleet at the moment and what's happening with your fleet is very important to us. On that note, make sure you interrupt with questions or with a comment or, whatever you want. I insist people interrupt. So what are we doing today? So today, it's very exciting. We're meeting Adam, which you may have already met if you don't know. Adam has been with Formbird for 9 months now. As I said before, he could have had a baby, except he hasn't done the change yet. And he came to us via Australian Sailing, which is used to be managing their people and their assets and their events. And so he's got a great depth of knowledge when it comes to dealing with, big problems. Now, also, just to call out, if anyone has anything that they're presenting that they think would be valuable to the group, I mean, not just for them, but they can, if they've got something in the future, they think, I'm doing a presentation for my CEO or something about what's happening in my fleet. Why not give us a bit of a rundown in one of the fleet meetings? So it would be great to actually hear from people in the fleet who are running fleets, what they're talking about with their managers, or maybe they're talking at a conference and they want to give us a dry run. Let us be your guinea pigs. All right, moving on. News. Well, everyone knows what the news is. We've had the plague, we've got the war, we've got the floods, we've got the famine. We're just waiting for the pestilence. I don't think we need to worry about the famine because, normally Bundaberg has all their lollies, so there's this time they're not. Maybe there's a famine up in Bundaberg. Who knows?
Just a health kick, mate.
It's a health kick. It's Feb fast in March. Something like that. Okay. Now IPWEA is coming up, 28th of this month. If you're going, so that's the Australasian Fleet Conference in Brisbane or Vegas, and so Mark's actually presenting, which is going to be fantastic for us. He's not going to be blah 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 Formbird. It's going to be him talking about what's happening with using data to predict the future. So how your fleet data that is being collected by manual entry through IoT devices, through your GPS stuff and your OBDs and all that stuff is going to predict what's going to happen in the future, so that you can actually be saying, oh yes, well, we know every Corolla is going to run out of power when this alternator fails at 125,000 kilometres. You don't keep cars that long. Anyway, everybody knows we do have a resources page. You should be able to see my screen, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, good.
Yep. Okay. So we have a resources page on our website. Just you can see, and we have Formbird Professionals Community. Obviously, you can go there. Now, I'll say I bang on about this. We haven't had too many takers, but I'm still pushing it. Join the Fleet discussion group. Hit that, and you'll be there. Also, we actually have a Formbird Facebook page. I mean, it is exciting. Okay, it's just all the content that we normally do. But that's fine. It gives you an alert if you are a Facebook member, and you can always join us or whatever. Let's look at the feature. So today's feature is, I'm going to pass back to Mark, who's going to introduce Adam. Mark.
Well, it's going to be a very quick introduction. I think Paul's already done the introduction to Adam, so I'm just going to hand it over to Adam.
No, what does Adam do at Formbird, Mark?
Adam, which a lot of people probably haven't actually dealt with Adam yet, but Adam is in the Formbird FLEET implementation and development role, working with Paul. He's more of the customer-facing side of our implementation and development team. So,
does he work exclusively in FLEET?
He works exclusively in FLEET with Paul. So they're both on the application side and implementation side. So let me hand over to Adam. I think you've actually got control, Adam. You can actually share.
Oh, really? Already? That's very exciting.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
1 second.
So Adam, perhaps just run through the points that you're going to do, and then...
Yeah, certainly. Can everyone see my screen there, though, first of all, just to make sure? Yep, cool, great. So there's a few things that we're going to look at today. Trying to focus this week on things that have been suggested by clients during our implementation meetings. So the first thing we're going to take a look at will be the ability to add a cost to an asset independent of a work order. So the current process has been you need to create a work order to create a cost against an asset. A couple of different councils, Bega and Brimbank, have suggested that we need a way to do this directly against the asset. We're also going to take a look at recording materials and labour against a job that's not related to an asset, because that was a common request as well. And a few other things around operators creating repair requests and alerts for registration expiries for users, and some tweaks to the daily driver check sheet workflow. So this first one I'll take a look at is that putting an asset cost directly against the asset rather than through the work order. So you'll find it here on the request list here under new asset expense other. And this is what the new form looks like. It's kind of similar to the red zone insurance request that we've already got. So you can pop in your asset. So I'll just use my example asset. You can give it a date. So we'll give it today's date. We'll give it a cost. We'll say it was $1,000. We'll give it a category. We'll say it was some new tires. And we'll give it a description and say that might be 4 new tires at a cheap place. You can also select a supplier that it's come from as well and give it an invoice number and attach any uploads as well. And you can click save on that one. And that turns it into an expense against that asset. The next piece of work around this will be a bulk importing of these. So, bulk creation of these. But this was step 1, which is creating this new request. You can find this on the history of the asset itself as well. So if you need to find it there where all the other requests are. That second item was recording materials and labour directly against the job, but not an asset. So the example that was given to us was commonly the workshop team goes out to work for another department. So for instance, doing some work on a bridge or something like that, a non-fleet asset. So they needed a way to be able to record that cost within the application so that, you can charge the other department. So what we already had was the internal request. So we already had that functionality there to kind of do internal stuff. So all we really had to do was modify the internal task work order to put in the materials here and the work effort as well. So you can add timesheet entries and use the time recorder toggle on off button here. I won't go into too much detail with that because it's a pretty common functionality across work orders, adding materials and work effort. If anyone wants any more kind of demonstration on that, I'm happy to go through those little elements there.
So Adam, just on that one, just so what sort of processes are people wanting to use that for specifically?
So it was Bega Valley who suggested it, Sean from Bega Valley. They commonly are asked by other departments to go out and do work because their workshop team, their mechanics have the skills, so auto electricians or whatever else, to go and work for another department. And they wanted to be able to capture those costs within the fleet department, so they could, charge the other department and justify their expenses.
Right. So this
Does that answer
is
your question,
actually
Mark?
fleet department performing other work. Yep.
Correct. Yeah, it's fleet department performing work for other departments. Yeah. Does that answer your question there?
Yep, I think so.
Cool.
Anyone else got questions?
Silence is golden.
Silence. Well,
Look, BRC have actually edited our own internal orders to add exactly those buttons, because we had the same problem that we were not able to see times, and also users weren't able to add costs. So that's great that you've implemented that into the generic system now.
Yeah, cool. So that'll be supported across the all the environments, all the sites. Michelle, we might have to talk about how that affects you if you've been using that customized work order for that purpose. But we can catch up about that another time. Anyone else? All good? All right.
hang on. Someone's talking, I think.
I think it might be a mic in the background.
Oh, it's a mic in the background. Okay.
The next one was creating a repair request for operators. So it was raised that on this operator menu here that the operator sees when they log in, they could create daily driver check sheet, but they couldn't create repair requests yet. So we've implemented that functionality there. So you can just select the asset from the grid here and click on create repair request. And that'll load up a new repair request for the operator. And obviously the operator has a cut down version, so they don't have the ability to schedule that work or assign that work to anybody at the workshop. So that then becomes a task for the workshop supervisor or the workshop team to manage. So that's a pretty small little bit there. But related to that was another change that was suggested by Bogan Shire, Emirate Bogan Shire. And that was for an alert for the user when they complete the suggestion was a daily driver check sheet, when an alert for when the asset's registration has expired. So obviously the operator has actual liability in terms of fines and demerit points if they drive a vehicle that the registration is expired. So it was suggested that this was a good way that we could prevent those situations from occurring where an operator might drive a vehicle that has the registration expired. So let me just find my example here. Sorry, that's the wrong one. On this operator menu, for anyone who hasn't looked at all, it defaults to the ones that you're allocated to or responsible for, but you can also change it to all to find an asset that you want. So let's use my example again here, and I'll create the daily driver check sheet. And I'll complete it however I'm going to complete it. I'll skip through all that. I'm not going to waste the time now pressing buttons, but I just want to show you the notifications that you get. So the first dialog box that appears is a primary meter incorrect notification, basically that the primary meter recorded is less than the primary meter currently on the asset. And the second one is asset registration expired. Please contact your supervisor or administrator. Any questions about that one?
Is there any thought with anyone, Maria or Michelle, other notifications or alerts that we could actually sort of look at with the daily driver? It's probably a question for Donnie, isn't it?
Yeah, look, we haven't gone any further with that because I've been away and we were looking to catch up with Adam anyway about what you covered now in the daily driver's checklist. Not for a daily driver's checklist, however, we are looking for an alert still, whilst it's not GPS triggered, for the supervisor review when it's been set to awaiting technician, so that the technician knows that there's something to be done.
Right.
So an alert, yes, but not related to this specific.
But not related to that, yeah. So, yep.
And then the other part of that we're hoping to achieve was to encourage operators to actually complete the daily driver check sheet. It's a common discussion I've had across a few councils now, where getting the operators to actually complete that pre-start check is sometimes challenging. So hopefully this feature, I guess, helps encourage operators to complete the daily driver check sheet, because it means that they know that the asset is actually registered according to the application. The next bit that I wanted to go through, which is kind of related again to the daily driver check sheet, but in a slightly different way. What we identified a couple of issues with the workflow potentially. So the way it was before was that the operator completes a daily driver check sheet, and if they tick fail on the daily driver check sheet, then I'll just open one of these up for you. If they tick fail on any item on the daily driver check sheet, that'll automatically create a request for the workshop. There's two priorities listed on the daily driver check sheet here: the urgent fleet out of service and non-urgent fleet operational. It's a pretty common thing across all the requests to have that priority there. But it's kind of identified that a non-urgent fleet operational failure, like so dent in some paneling or, you know, wear and tear on the seat or something small, would probably end up, if it's not rectified immediately and the asset remains in service, the subsequent daily driver check sheets would report the same failure and lead to many requests being created for the workshop until the issue was actually rectified. So this, Michelle, was actually what I was going to meet with you about. So we're kind of two birds with one stone today, which is good. So the change we have done is that with the other priority, so urgent fleet out of service, the logic is that means that the asset can't have another daily driver check sheet completed against it. So it's obviously urgent, so it just goes straight to the workshop as a request. And if they select non-urgent fleet operational, instead of becoming a request straight away for the workshop to manage, it goes to the daily driver checklisting report and sits there in a pending state until it's actually actioned. So you can view this report, see all your daily driver check sheets, see which ones are pending, and review whether you want to turn those into a request for the workshop to action.
Cool.
So basically, it's like a tag out system. If it's not supposed to be operated, unless till the workshop work on it and complete a request form, then the operator can't do a pre-start check, meaning they shouldn't be driving it.
They can still do a pre-start check, and that would generate, so hypothetically, if they selected something and selected the priority of urgent, that the fleet's not operational, if they then kept driving that vehicle the next day, for example, and didn't bring it into the workshop, then if they following the proper procedures and completing another daily driver check, that would create another request for the workshop, essentially. Are you saying that's something you would want, though, is like a flag so they can't complete a daily driver check if an asset's unoperational, out of service?
If it's not operational, it should be no, you cannot drive this vehicle until this work order is cleared.
Yeah. Michelle, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, look, I actually agree. If it's if there's something that is imperative, there should be some alert that says can't happen. There's obviously a compliance and safety issue going on there. Then,
yeah.
So is there somewhere that really brings it to the forefront of maybe of a supervisor dashboard, or without having to go into something like this page that you're showing now? Is there something that really is alerting somebody to make it obvious to them?
Alerts are a fraught thing, I think, because if we create an alert for every time there is a daily driver check sheet in this report in a pending status, then there'll be just endless alerts. So I'm not sure that's the best way to go. Putting it somewhere prominent is I think a fair criticism or a fair suggestion. It's a matter of where that would occur. So if it is the supervisor of the organisation who's going to go in and check these daily driver check sheets, then I'd say probably on the supervisor menu would make sense. But if it's an administrator within the organisation, then that might not make sense. So we've got to kind of work out the right process. It could be that they just add a shortcut into their menu sidebar here. That could be a good way to go. Or maybe it's just an organisational thing about a daily reminder to check it. I'm interested in feedback on that, definitely.
Marie, do you agree that it's more so really about the urgent ones, Adam? The non-urgent, I mean, look, and yes, you don't want to be being pinged every 5 minutes, but it's really the urgent items that are an imperative, whatever some format. What do you think, Marie?
Yeah, I'm thinking it should appear in the workshop supervisor's dashboard, but under a separate heading, as in tagged out or so that they can see the importance and prioritise those items first, so that they can do them that day and get the vehicle operational ASAP.
Adam, it could actually almost go to the top and only be displayed when there are items. So if there aren't items, it doesn't appear. But if there are items, then it appears in a list, and almost it's sort of annoying because it stays there until it's tagged out.
These things already appear in the supervisor list anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, they would occur would show up in this request list here for sure.
Right.
But I take your point about highlighting them as particularly urgent.
Yeah.
It's a fair point. I think our consideration there would be adding another element to this and more code to this dash would probably slow it down a little bit more. So we just have to be mindful of that. It's not to say we shouldn't do it, but that's just a consideration from our end about it.
Maybe the status icon could be something unique or something, something.
Oh, we've got a field there which is tagged non-urgent. We can just put that in that list.
Right.
Add that into this in this grid, Paul.
Yeah. And if you want, and we can set a default sort to that.
Yep.
What about, at the very, like on GWW, they have these, it's at the very top of your screen and it goes right across, and it's a bar that says, I don't know, water out or something that notifies it, because not everyone will scroll down. They really work in their graphs predominantly. I'd be looking to, can you scroll up a little bit, Adam, please, to the top of your page?
Yeah, sorry. Yep.
So keep going. Just, at the very top, just before your dash, you know how there's those, Mark, what do they use in GWW or Paul, where it goes right across. There's a banner that goes right across.
Yeah, just changing the HTML sort of thing on that dash, on the heading title to incorporate, a flag based on, based on specific, values.
Just something, I don't think you'd need to go into detail. I think really if there's something that highlights, and that's really front and center, they can't miss that, to basically say there is an urgent asset that requires immediate attention, really. And then they can go into it and have a look which one it is. But if you're relying on them, a lot of people use it so differently, they may not scroll down and sit in that next table.
Yeah. We need to make sure that there's some sort of, is there a good combination that we could put in there that would remove it from there? So there's just so that there's not like the one asset that's perennially out, and that means that thing's always showing. We need to sort of, I suppose it'd be a matter of changing the request status to something that sort of says that it's going to drop out of there, because just having an urgent request or an urgent daily driver may mean that we're just going to be careful that whatever the combination is, it just doesn't sit there permanently.
Yes, of course, because that would A, be very annoying, and B, if you've dealt with it,
it just doesn't.
Get rid of it. You'd start ignoring it if it's there every day.
You start ignoring it. Yeah, that's the problem. So maybe we need to just look at what that combination is in terms of, someone has to change the status to, I don't know what, in progress, or maybe not even in progress. I don't know what. Maybe it is in progress.
Assign it, set a date, assign
it and set a date.
Or do something that, that's already an existing component or an existing status. And again,
I don't think we want to add another status.
No, I don't think you want to either, because that just complicates it. But if we can, again, at a generic level, come up with saying, if something is in your face at the top, you deal with it. And if you change status to whatever, or you set a date, or you assign a workshop or a person, then that will get rid of that alert.
Yes. Yeah. Assignment's probably a good one, or because it's sort of like saying, well, I'm giving it now to someone who has to go and do it.
Yeah, I like the assignment and the date, the scheduling the date as well, because if it's urgent, you probably would schedule it straight away, I imagine, Michelle.
The requests are automatically assigned to a workshop. And
it'd be assigning it to a person, wouldn't it?
Not everybody's assigning the request. It doesn't have to be assigned to a person.
Mm.
No,
So
we
only-
sometimes
only some-
assign it to a
Only
workshop.
some people would be using that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might be worth putting something out on your community to ask the question of
Yeah.
what, what combination or what can we use that's existing? Don't introduce anything new here. That would get rid of that and get people's feedback.
Yes. I suppose what, like Paul said, we just need to make sure the logic actually applies across the board, in the sense that if you've got auto assignment and auto things, and it may never either appear or you can't get rid of it, one or the other.
So at the moment, if it's marked urgent, it's put into a pending state. So if it's out of the pending state, somebody's actually actioned it. So you
Okay,
really
so
just
maybe
need-
if it's in
you really
pending-
just
No,
need to-
if it's urgent, it goes to open straight away.
right. So we just need a list of open daily driver check sheets.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And once they're in progress, they're no longer somebody's actioning them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, once they're in progress. Yeah. Happy to move on to the next item, everyone.
I think so.
Yeah. Cool. Let me just get rid of that one. So the next one is on repair work orders. And what we actually have that we've put in is repair checks. So they are similar to your daily driver check sheets and your service checks.
Where is this? Where did this one
PM
come
service
from?
work order.
Who was requesting this, and what's the main
So
purpose for it?
it was actually functionality that was already in the application that was just hidden, essentially.
Right.
Yeah. So definitely interested in feedback on it for sure. It just appears on your repair work order in this repair details panel here under your technician's report, and with all of that. The checks involved aren't, well formatted at the moment. I don't think. It's just an example. You can see it opens up in a little dialog box. And this is formatted just so everyone knows where it is. On the repair type, you can actually select checklist entries for the repair type. So it's driven off your selection of the repair type on the repair work order up here.
Okay, so it's specific checks around a specific repair type. So if you're doing an engine, you check that the oil's been filled and that this has been done, or whatever else.
Yeah, that's a good way to sum it up, Mark. Definitely. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Any thoughts about the utility, Michelle, Marie, anyone else?
Getting my head around it.
Yep. Sorry, I just had to take a phone call, so I just missed that part. So I'll have to come back and watch it on the recording. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
That's okay. So the
Marie,
idea here,
yeah.
yeah.
Go,
Sorry.
Mark.
You go.
Oh, okay, I'll go. You sure? You sure? Do you want to go?
No.
So it's really similar, Marie, to the PM service work order. You've got your service checks on the PM service work order. Basically, this is the same thing except for repair checks, and it's based on the selection of the repair type. So kind of like Mark was saying, if you select a repair type of engine, for example, you could configure checks that you want the technicians to complete that says, oh, yeah, I've replaced the oil, for example.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Click.
Or all the screws are back in, or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Yeah, all the bolts are back in.
Okay, that's
no
great.
tools left in the vehicle, for example, in the engine bay of the vehicle. Yeah.
And do we add these in via mappings? How do we add these checks in?
Yeah, absolutely. So, are you familiar with the repair types?
Yes, I am. Marie, are
Yeah,
you?
you are.
Not yet.
That's okay. So this is a mapping for the repair type, and you can select your repair checks, what repair checks you want available by repair type, essentially. So whether it's accessories, or you could do the same thing for the engine one.
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud. Your favourite saying, Mark.
Yeah. Nah, that's all
Happy to
good.
move on?
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So the last one was just to touch back on the risk assessment work order and the questionnaire functionality. We've met a few weeks ago with the working group on it. So I just wanted to show you the risk assessment work order. So it's a standard kind of work order, but down here you've got your risk assessment checks, and again these are configured by your asset group mappings, isn't it, Paul? Yeah. The functionality is if you've got your questions here, your assessment questions. If you select yes to any of them, you then click create risk documents. And that creates a work order here, a work order items, a risk item here, which you can then open up and complete with your different things. You've got your matrix here, which is actually configurable by site. So it's pretty common for different sites to use different risk matrices or slight variations. So this is all configurable. And you can put in your control measures, images, and then your second risk rating after the controls have been put in place. And you've also got your signatures as well.
We'll probably won't we need to also then create work orders for actioning that risk underneath that probably? So you've done the risk assessment, but then you've got the mitigation work orders in order to actually
Sorry, maybe I didn't explain that well. This is the risk mitigation part.
Right.
So this is
identifying. But the actual that's the risk mitigation, but then you might actually do stuff. My understanding is you might actually go and do stuff after that as part of that mitigation, which is like a repair work order or whatever it might be. It's like a full-on repair work order. You go and actually do work on it.
Yeah, so the relationships with the request, Mark. And so you'll just create another work order which would be the addressing of these risks.
Okay, right. Yep.
So, Paul, is that risk work order sitting under a request for that asset, essentially? Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and that's where you're saying if you had to do some work, you could just create another work order under that request to then mitigate that risk by, I don't know, moving the toolbox, adding a camera, whatever it might be.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
There's also the ability to create a risk assessment questionnaire, which is essentially the same functionality, but embedded within the work order itself.
How does that look there, Paul? What does that work?
Find an example for you here.
Yeah, have you got one?
Yeah, I've got one.
Good on you.
I hadn't realised that
I can make one.
The risk had gone quite so far.
Once you got the structure, then it's really just a question of creating, another structure to work within another structure. So,
yeah.
So there's two options, I guess, to creating a risk assessment. You can create it under request at that level and create a risk assessment work order, like I showed you before, or on or other work orders. You can also complete the questionnaire. Is it formatted? It's not formatted on this one. Sorry, Paul, I don't actually have a good example. Have you got one there?
Not that I can immediately get to. That I can think of. Sorry, but you can see the requests. You can see just scroll down, Adam. So these are questionnaires which are documents within the system that are mapped to a particular work templates within the system which are mapped to a particular work order. So you can create like a questionnaire which is related to this particular work order. And maybe you can just create one of those accessories defects. So that'll create a document which can be opened below. And this is a set of dedicated questions about accessories. So I've just taken that functionality and instead of accessories, it's a risk assessment. So the same risk assessment form will appear in that format.
Okay, cool. So that's just against a regular work order. So potentially you can then embed the risk assessment under that work order as well. So you can come from the other direction in effect.
That's right. So there's two requirements that I heard. One was, we want to be able to do a risk assessment, and then there was another requirement that was like, well, we're doing a job, and we found something that is risky. We need a risk assessment for. So this particular scenario covers that second sort of requirement, I think.
Right. So one is I'm going out and I'm performing a risk assessment, and this is my items that I need to address because I've performed the risk assessment.
Yep.
And this one is I'm doing a specific piece of work, and I've identified during doing that work a risk.
Yeah. So the risk assessment mapping is there might be the risk assessment is kind of mapped, so it's still using the same mapping. So it'll be a generic risk assessment as per mapped as the same work order. If there was additional risks identified, we probably just need something like other, and then tick that to get to the control document. Or we might need to do a little bit more work around like what actually appears in that list on the questionnaire. It might be different than what appears on the work order.
Okay. So perhaps the next steps then, Paul, is to let's get this up into test, or whenever you're going to do the next migration to test, and then we'll reconvene the risk working group.
Yeah.
And do a bit of a dedicated session and move through it nice and slowly and let people play with it.
Yeah. I'm just aware I probably don't really want to introduce any more sort of configuration. So
no,
it's
exactly.
pretty onerous as it is. So, if we can get something that kind of works within the current structure, that'd be good.
Yes. Yeah. Well, what from what you can understand or see there, Marie, you're the sort of risk expert on today's show.
Good progress, really good progress.
Cool. Yeah, I actually I hadn't seen it yet either. So, so you, me, both. No, that's good. So perhaps, Marie, you're happy to do another join a session and we'll run through it slowly. And
yeah, sure.
Yeah, and anyone else, of course, is always welcome to join. So Michelle or Ben, if you're wanting to look at it from a point of view of trade.
Look, I think that's a great idea if you put into test, and that way, if you let everyone know, Paul, then we can all go in there and have a play prior to meeting again, and that way we'll be able to be, have some good questions to throw to you.
I'm actually thinking, Michelle, we have two sessions. One is a sort of a training session, so people are really understand. So we don't people just don't blindly go in there. We have the sort of samples and everything else, so they go to the right asset with the right, you know what I mean? And then sort of say, well, these are sort of the three links, and here's how it works. This is how it's put together, and then people can go in with the context of having some knowledge about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And then we
want
can
to
follow
use
up.
it. We want to use it how Paul's programmed it to look at it and go, yeah, that works for us, or whatever it might be.
And if we have that sort of training session, then the play environment, you can, go out and pretend to do one type thing, like let's go and do one on a vehicle and just see how it works.
Yep, good idea.
Yeah. Cool.
Have we had enough of me talking yet?
No, we're not.
Well, if you've had enough, if anyone else has got anything they'd like to say, now is your time or your chance. Okay, so one of the things we're doing is building up with the meetups, is building up a bit of a knowledge base as well. So if I'm just going to get into. So if we look at a previous meetup, so this is where you might have something in your head where you said, I remember some blah 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 said something about whatever Mark's angular explanation, for example. If you go to our YouTube channel, which you can actually always find by if you really stuck, just go Formbird YouTube. That'll probably get you there, even though I spelled it wrongly. And that'll get you to our channel. So I don't know how, there it is actually there, Formbird FLEET YouTube playlist. That's not, sorry, it's looking at it differently because I'm actually as a administrator. But once you're on a video, and if you come through the video, you could have come to the video via our one of our videos on the resources page. but we have a index for each item. So I go through. So with Adam's presentation today, maybe there was something you want to go back on. It's easy to grab. You can grab it at the actual time. So if, for example, I just clicked on that, it would take me to
Greater West. Talking about a little one he's just done for Greater Western Water. Again, not
right in the middle of the presentation, and you can skip all the blah blah blah. So you don't have to feel like you watch. The other tip for young players, if you want to skip sort of blah 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 and you want to catch up, you can always watch it at faster than normal. So there's a little setting down here in YouTube which actually allows you to go to playback speed. Now it's set to normal. We don't know you do this. We're not going to judge people and say, oh, they were watching at twice the speed. No, but 1.5 will mean you can get you can get through Mark as quick as possible if you want to, or anybody else, or Adam if you want to get rushed through. So we're off share. Thank you very much, Adam, for all your stuff there. Maybe there is some questions that people will shoot you after they watch the video in replay. Also, maybe you, if anyone wants to stay on the line and talk to Adam, they can. But we'll probably have a debrief and work out. What do people think of the current format? Have you got any suggestions? I keep asking you guys for feedback. Michelle, I'll direct something directly at you.
Feedback for these meetings?
Yeah.
No, look, I think having an agenda, I think, is a good idea because people will have a general idea of what will be covered. And also when you do, like you've just shown in the video, they know what they're going to go and find. And at the end, have a bit of an open session on anything we'd like to maybe cover next time. But no, I think the sessions are fantastic. I really like the fact that Adam has shown what Paul has been programming so that, again, when we use these things, we get a good understanding on what is the predicted usage or how are we intended to use something. And then we can give you feedback as a community to say, well, that's a great idea, but you might need to tweak this or something.
Yeah, I was sort of looking at what Adam was doing and thinking this is a really good kind of reminder of of low level stuff. It's not earth shattering or whatever. It's not a sales pitch. It's actually how the nuts and bolts of it work. And I think that if you're not using these functions, then maybe these are the functions. That's what I kind of got from watching today's. Was I kind of enjoyed it from the fact because I don't have much to do with the actual software. So actually seeing it operate for me was quite powerful. So, yeah. Marie, you're our other stalwart.
Yeah. No, I'm actually quite impressed with the risk assessment side of things because I had a meeting with a GM the other day and he was asking me, when do you think this will be up and running by? And I've just said to him, the end of the year. I'm like, well, this could be really good getting this done in a few months.
I asked Mark the other day when it was going to be up and running. He said the end of the year.
No.
Both right. So when will it be up and running?
Well, as soon as we get some feedback and get stuck through.
So it looks like it's well on the way. And was that something that kind of came out of these meetings? Mark?
Oh, well, they're definitely the risk assessment. Marie and a couple of people were very keen for us to pursue it late last year. And, I suppose it took us a couple of rounds to get our head around what it actually meant from a software point of view. So I think we've sort of landed in a much better, we had a very good session with, when Lockie volunteered and Marie came along and what have you. A sort of better understanding. I don't say I think risk assessment is a pretty ubiquitous terms and it can be very much interpreted in any one organisation to mean or perform, a different way. But I think that I've got a sense that we're actually heading in the right direction to what a lot of people are looking at risk. And it was really powerful actually having sort of the pure fleet as well as the water perspective come into it. I think this is very good in terms of trying to combine or mold together the same basic risk process in both the assessment of risk as well as the identification during an actual process. So like while you're doing a work order, because unfortunately the word risk assessment to me has always been sort of just this sort of generic thing. And I think that there really is clearly two or three or more risk assessments, which is, you know, I've identified a risk while I'm doing my job and I need someone to deal with it and it needs to be dealt with, or I am going out to perform a risk assessment. So there's both the risk assessment as well as the risk identification, if you like. Again, I only know that much about risk assessment at this point in time, but I think that, you know, it's been fantastic having that sort of multidisciplinary. It's actually has proven that it, you know, it can work, I think, anyway. What do you think, Marie? I think that it's looking really good there.
Yeah, it's very good progress so far. Very well.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So yeah, thanks everyone, and we'll sending out the invites again. We're never sure which one works, which one actually people we do get people coming along, so it's fine. We will stay safe, everybody. We don't know what next pestilence is going to look like, so it's on its way, I can tell you. No, I don't know. And
never mind the pestilence. It's going to be the floods in New South Wales.
Yeah, well, back to floods then. Okay. Floods plus, has anyone been affected by the floods?
Yes, our northern customers have. So Kyogle, Tenterfield, Lismore.
Yeah. Oh well.
Brimbank had a lot of rain.
Yeah. Well, I wish everybody luck, and we'll see you for the next one. I don't have the date in front of me, so I won't make it up. But it probably will be early April, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Because we're
early
on
mid-April.
Early to mid-April. So again, Thursday at 11 a.m. We'll see you then.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.